All right, let us now begin with the first module. So, once again, welcome to the world of managerial communication. This is our module number one, Fundamentals of Business Communication. I hope you remember the content of the module. Last slide, we discussed about what are the contents, unit number one, two, three, four, and five. So, we are going to begin now with unit number one, that is your first module, Fundamentals of Business Communication. Okay, just read what is there on the screen. A woman is driving her car on road. A man is driving his car on the same road but in the opposite direction. When they pass each other, the woman opens her window and shouts to the man, "Donkey!" The man immediately responds, "You donkey!" Both continue their separate ways, the man being very satisfied with his quick reaction. And just as he reaches the first curve in the road, see what happened. You understood what happened. The woman who was driving her car, she was not trying to make fun or abuse the man, but she was just trying to make him aware that there is a horse which could be harmful as was out of control. But the man felt that he was being called donkey. And so he responded very quickly that you donkey. And he was very happy. But see, unfortunately, what happened? Now, how do you see this situation? Do you think that there is some miscommunication that has happened? Or do you think there was a better way of communicating because both of them were driving and obviously they didn't get the chance to quickly or to share the message in any other way? Or you think that if they could have shared the message of the presence of the donkey in any other way, they would have, this accident could have been avoided. So when we are talking about communication, there are different ways in which you communicate. Some can be successful, some could be, unsuccessful. We call some miscommunication. So a lot of things are there. The subject, that's why, is very interesting. The way you say, even the meaning would differ. The way you say it, your tone of the voice, the pitch, the volume, everything will change the meaning. That's why the subject is so much important, so much interesting. Right? With this, let us begin the subject. So, communication. What do we mean by communication? It is a series of experience of hearing, smell, seeing, taste, and touch. Communication is a series of experience. All these things are called communication. Even when you hear something, that's communication. When you taste something, that's communication. Without speaking anything, if you taste and if you feel that, yeah, it's very salty, that means it's communicating something. If you see, it's communication. If you touch, it's communication. If you smell, it's communication. Right? So some are called verbal communication, some are called non-verbal communication, but all these things, everything is called communication. The word communication, which has its origin in the Latin word communis or communicare, which means to share, brings out many images in one's mind. It could be a process, it could be a network, a technique, or a form of entertainment. Communication is both an art and science. It may be an inborn quality or a talent, as it is when we say the gift of the God, that is, the ability to speak with an easy and expressive flow of words. Communication is an interdisciplinary subject which has an element of creativity as well as an element of precision for mastering of skills as well as techniques. Communication is the act or process of transformation of ideas, emotions, skills, and so on. It is the process by which we understand others and in turn endeavor to be understood by them. Communication is dynamic, constantly changing and shifting in response to the total situation. Communication maintains and animates life. It creates a common pool of ideas, strengthens the feelings of togetherness through exchange of messages, and translates thought into action. It strives to achieve, especially through information sharing, relationship building, and action orientation. So all these things, see, we are not going to, I'm not going to explain to you everything that's given over here, but I hope that you read it, and I hope that you also felt that it's so interesting, right? See, it's the process of transformation of ideas. You have something in your mind and you want to share to somebody, then you have to transform it in a way that somebody else can understand. So it's the process of transformation of ideas. You have some emotions, emotion of anger, let's say you're very angry and you're reacting in some way. So that means you're converting into the way somebody else can understand. You have feeling of love, or you have you are sad, or you are angry, or you feel disgusting, or you feel happy. All these things, whether it is emotion, whether the ideas, whether the skills or words or anything, you have to convert it, right, so that others can understand. It is dynamic, it is constantly changing. You have to shift in response to the situation. Depending upon the situation, you need to change the way you communicate. It also creates a common pool of ideas. It strengthens the feelings of togetherness through exchange of messages and translate thought into action. So it helps, in information sharing, in relationship building, action orientation, everywhere. Communication is important. It's must. The word communication comes from the Latin word communicare, which means to share. That is, to share information, ideas between a sender and a receiver. Communication is the process of exchanging information, usually through a common symbol of system of symbols. So there has to be a common system between both the parties. Receiver, there's a receiver, there is sender. There has to be common system. Some symbols has to be common. The language has to be same so others can understand. The process by which information and feelings shared by people through an exchange of verbal and non-verbal messages. So it is the process by which you're sharing your information, you're sharing your feeling, and there is some exchange of verbal and non-verbal messages which are taking place. So that is called communication. Now, what are the goals of communication? Like there can be n number of goals. These are just few mentioned over here. First thing, to change the behavior. You want somebody to act upon something. That means you're wanting somebody to change their behavior. You are instructing. I'm instructing you to listen. That means I'm instructing you to change your behavior. If you're doing anything else, pay attention. Like that. Or second, to get action. You are communicating because you want somebody to act on something. Like do this, do that, so to get action. You are communicating because you want to ensure understanding. You are sharing because you want somebody to understand what you're saying and act upon it, right? So to ensure understanding. You are communicating because you want to persuade. You want to convince somebody that, yeah, please do this, please buy this, please have this. So to persuade and to get and give information. You are communicating because you want to give information, because you want to receive information, right? So these are some of the common goals of communication. Some of the characteristics of business communication. First thing, it is a two-way traffic. So it is a two-way process, right? If you are just standing and if nobody is listening to you, then your communication is not complete, right? It is a two-way traffic. You share, you communicate to somebody. You are a sender, there has to be a receiver. If there is a receiver, there has to be a sender. So it is a two-way traffic, communication takes place between two parties. Second one, it is a continuous process, because if you are sharing something, obviously you are expecting a response. If you receive a response, obviously you want to give a response. So it is a kind of continuous process. If you are sharing something and if you don't get a response, that means the process is incomplete. It is an incomplete communication or sometimes miscommunication. Second, it could be a short-lived process because message was passed, it was acted upon, or you asked something, you received a response, communication is over. Then another communication is starting. So it is a short-lived process. It needs proper understanding. Also, communication needs proper understanding. As in, if both the parties are not following a common language, then there is no understanding. Don't know what's happening. It also leads to the achievement of organizational objectives, because business communication, the idea is to achieve the organization objective. Both the parties are communicating with some objective in mind, so it leads to the achievement of organizational objective. And another characteristic, it dispels misunderstanding, because you said something, you received the response in form of anything, maybe in form of service, maybe in form of a feedback, anything. So it just dispels misunderstanding. If you shared something and if you did not receive a response, then that means there were chance of misunderstanding. But here, there's no misunderstanding, so it dispels misunderstanding. So these are the characteristics of business communication. Okay. Now, what is the importance and benefits of communication? So, here we are talking about the business communication. What is the importance? Why effective communication is so much essential in business? See, first thing, increased productivity. So you can increase the productivity only when there is a effective communication happening, right? If I'm telling you how you are supposed to treat your clients or what are the products and you don't know, then, or how to do the production or how to maintain the safety, then it's not possible to increase the productivity. So it will help in increasing the productivity if there is an effective communication, right? Everybody is very clear about their role, what has to be done, and then people are working towards achievement of those goals. Second one, stronger decision making. So stronger decisions are possible when there is an effective communication. People are taking right decisions. It is possible when everybody is sharing their opinion, everybody is considering each other's situations and problems, then it's possible to take strong decisions. Then quicker problem solving. Quicker problem solving is possible when there is effective communication. You face a problem, you share, and then you receive a response and you act. So problem solving becomes quite quick. Then comes the healthier business relationships. So healthier business relationships are possible when there is effective communication. You are, let's say you are the boss, and if you are not able to communicate to your employees about what you're wanting them to do or what they're supposed to achieve, then people will be very confused. But rather than that, you are welcoming them, you are helping them understand what they're supposed to do. Then you are appreciating their performance, you are giving them feedback on timely basis. Then all these things are considered as healthier business relationships. And you just don't maintain your relationships only with your employees, but you also maintain relationships with other stakeholders, like your suppliers also, right? Your customers also, your colleagues also, your superiors also, your juniors also. So healthier business relationships are possible only when there is effective communication. Next one is improved customer relations. So improved customer relations are possible only when there is effective communication, because customers needs, you need to understand what they want, right? If you're not able to understand, if there's miscommunication, you will always give wrong products, you will offer poor service, so it's bad. So, improved customer relations are possible only when there is effective communication. You understand what do they need, you help them if they have some queries, you help them if they have some problems. So, then it is possible to have effective communication. Increased awareness among employees. So, increased awareness is possible only when there is effective communication, right? People are aware about what is expected out of them or how they are supposed to work or offer the service. So, that helps in effective communication. Then, lesser misunderstanding. Misunderstanding will be less if there will be open communication. Everybody will be free to share their ideas and opinions about how they feel and how work should be done. So there will be lesser misunderstanding. Then better quality of documents are possible when you maintain proper when you do effective communication. You exactly know what kind of language has to be used when you are, when you're talking to your clients, when you're talking to the outsiders, other stakeholders, what kind of documentation has to be maintained within the organization. So all these things lead to smooth functioning of business. So these are the basic things which are covered when there is effective communication. There is enhanced professional image. You know, when communication is effective, when at least you have some protocols regarding communication, that this is how we are supposed to give response to our clients or any outsiders. That means you are forming a very good professional image for yourself. People will say that no, in this organization you will always get respect. Everybody is very professional, the way they deal with you, the way they talk with you, the way they respond to your queries. So it will always help you enhance your professional image. Okay, now talking about the process of communication, this is important. So see, there are a number of steps which are here. The first step is sender. The process of communication always begins with a sender. Then there is a message which is being transferred, and something happens which is called encoding. After encoding, that message is passing through a channel. After that, the message is being decoded. That is called decoding. And after decoding, it finally is understood by the receiver. So that is called receiver. Once again, I repeat: sender, encoding, channel, decoding, receiver. And then receiver is going to give the feedback. So again, it goes back to the sender. And the entire box, there is something called context. The communication is happening in a particular context. So that is called the context. Now, there are so many, we call them components of communication. So the entire process of communication, let's see how many components we have. Number one, sender. Second, encoding. Third, channel. Fourth, decoding. Fifth, receiver. Sixth, feedback. Seventh, context. And important thing, message. Message is also one of the component. So there are eight things, the meaning of which we need to understand, that is part of the process of communication. Let's understand the meaning one by one. See something, this is a model, same thing. Thought, how is it said? What is heard? Thought, what is said back? This is how the entire communication model works, and there is something called noise. This is also part of the component of communication process, noise, which is a disturbance. Okay. See, this is how the coding works. Coding means this individual is trying to send the message that there's a tree. Now you have something in your mind, you're trying to communicate. Now other person is also understanding there is a tree. Now this is called an effective communication, because the tree, the way I wanted you to understand, same way it has been understood. But if suppose a person is understanding something else, then there is called miscommunication. So there's coding of tree, sending the message, and decoding of tree. Right? That's how communication works. Now let's understand the components of communication. As I said, sender, message, encoding, medium or channel, decoding, receiver, feedback, and context. Okay, now first one is the sender. Who is the sender? So the sender begins the communication cycle by encoding or creating the message to be sent. Before creating the message, the sender must observe the receiver to determine the complexity of the words to be used within the message, the receiver's ability to interpret the message, and the best channel by which to send the message. So, first thing is sender. Sender will begin the communication cycle by encoding. And what care sender should be taking is sender should always understand the capacity of the receiver, whether how much complex language or complex words you can use that will be understood by the receiver, means what is the ability of the receiver to interpret the message, and what is the best channel through which message can be sent that that receiver will understand. Should you use oral communication or should you use written communication? How should you, what kind of channel you should be using? So that is the first thing, sender. Second one, message. Now, what is a message? So, it is the content being communicated. The message must be clearly understood by the receiver. So, there are four modes of communication: speaking, listening, gesture or body language, and writing. These modes or channels are affected by our physical and mental development, our culture, our education and life experiences, our impressions from models and mentors, and in general by how we feel and accept ourselves as individuals. So there's something called message. Next one is encoding. Now, what do you mean by encoding? See, encoding means translating information into a message in the form of symbols that represent ideas or concepts. So basically, you're encoding the message, translating it in a way that receiver will understand. This process translates the ideas or concepts into the coded message that will be communicated. The symbols can take on numerous forms, such as language. It can be, see, you wanted to share a tree, you wanted to share about a tree. So you need to convert it in a way somebody can understand. Let's say you're saying there's a tree. So you use words or you use your gestures. You, with your fingertips, you try and explain what are you saying. These symbols are used to encode ideas into messages that others can understand. So that process is called encoding. It means translating the information into a message in the form of symbols that represent your ideas so that others can understand. That is encoding. Next one is channel. Yeah, so now you need to select a channel. What is a channel? It is a vehicle which carries your messages from the sender to the receiver. So channel is something that is going to carry your message from the sender to the receiver. For example, with channel, let's say face to face communication, you have decided that I'm going to use a face to face communication. So, voice is your channel, right? Voice, the way you speak, you've already converted that message into a language and you're using voice as a channel in a face to face communication. Suppose you're using written communication, then a letter, a memo, report, etc. These are your channels, right? Letter is a channel, memo is a channel, report is a channel. The next one is telephonic conversation. Then telephone is a channel because you're using a medium, a channel to share your message. The telephone is a channel. So that is called channel. After channel, next one is decoding. So what is decoding? Decoding is conducted by the receiver. Once the message is received and examined, the stimulus is sent to the brain for interpreting in order to assign some type of meaning to it. Now, see, you are a receiver. Receiver is going to decode the message. The I hope you remember that slide which had tree on it, right? So message is sender is trying to send a message that there is a tree. Now decoder, once you receive the message and you examine, the stimulus means some kind of stimulus, some kind of messages sent to the brain for interpreting, that okay, a person is saying tree, so I will also have some image in my mind or on my mind so that I understand that okay, there is a tree. Now the receiver begins to interpret the symbols sent by the sender, translating the message to their own set of experiences in order to make the symbols meaningful. Now, you must have seen a tree in your life. So, for you, tree means that tree. You will be trying to give meaning as per your experience in life. Successful communication takes place when the receiver correctly interprets the sender's message, right? So that's how decoding is done. It means giving meaning to the message that you have received. So that is called decoding. After that comes the receiver. So you know who is the receiver. The receiver is the recipient of the sender's message. The receiver must decode or interpret the meaning of the message, right? So you are the recipient. The primary sensory skill used in verbal communication is called listening. Verbal communication, receiver, what kind of skills you have to show? Listen. If you listen, you'll understand. The receiver must be aware that not only the spoken words, but the tone and pitch of the voice and the speed at which the words are spoken carry meaning and must be evaluated. So the receiver must be aware about all these things, that not only the words which are spoken, but the tone and pitch of the voice and the speed at which the words are spoken, they also carry meaning. So they also need to be evaluated. So the receiver has to be really effective to understand what message speaker is trying to pass. Then comes the feedback. Feedback takes the place after the receiver has decoded the message sent by the sender. Feedback is the receiver's way of ensuring that the message that is understood is the same message that was sent. I hope all of you are understanding. So when I'm asking this question, I'm expecting the feedback just to ensure that the message which I wanted you to understand is the same that you've actually understood. Feedback also provides an opportunity for the receiver to clarify any misunderstanding regarding the original message and to ask for additional information. So, feedback also provides an opportunity for the receiver to clarify any misunderstanding regarding the original message and to ask for additional information. This is called the feedback. And finally, there is something called context. So, whenever communication is happening, it is always happening considering some context in mind. Let's say if both two people, um, sender and receiver, they're happy, then the situation is happiness. So both of you will show such kind of reactions. See, context is the circumstances surrounding a message. If let's say that there is a very serious situation, panicky situation, then both of them will be exchanging communication in a very serious form. You will be very fast, very speedy. This has happened. Oh, this has happened. Let's quickly, resolve this thing. So context is very important. In what context you are sharing the message. Context is the circumstances surrounding a message. The circumstances might include the setting, the value position of the people, and appropriateness of a message. If context is serious, you cannot be happy and smiling. You have to understand in what context the in what situation the communication is happening. So you have to act accordingly. This means considering your audience, the forum under which you are speaking, the era, and accept it. No. So that is called context. Sometimes there is noise, distortion. So sender is sending the message and receiver is also giving the feedback, but there is some kind of disturbances which is called distortion. So this also happens, because of which the messages are not delivered and you are not getting the proper feedback because your sender did not send it properly and the receiver did not understand clearly. Some basic truths about communication as we are finishing the process. Without receiving a response, the cycle is incomplete, right? If you don't get a response, cycle is incomplete because you don't know if person is understood. Meanings received are not necessarily due same as the meaning transmitted. That's where miscommunication happens. I'm trying to say something, but you've not understood. So that's where miscommunication might happen. Meaning is in the mind, and no two minds are alike, right? Tree What I am explaining is tree, but you might not have the same tree in mind. You might be thinking about another tree. And the symbols for communicating are imperfect. So are our best communication effort. Even symbols could be an imperfect. I am showing you thumbs up means yes, well done. But in other culture, it means something else. So then our communication effort fails. So these are some of the basic truths about communication. Okay. So this is how the process of communication goes. We will be moving on to the next topic. Okay, thank you.